going on, everybody? Welcome to the late night Saturday live stream presented to you by the Dose Media Network. I'm Ben Hauver, joined by Joey Carrion for what is, in my opinion, shaping up to be one of the most interesting and fun slates that we've had on DraftKings all season long. Looking very forward to getting into it with you. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Little late tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Ben.
Yep, had to sort some things out pre-stream, make sure that I was on all the right plays. I didn't want to give you guys, any half-assed plays because we're here to win all the money, and that's what we're going to do tonight.
Yeah, I mean, could have won a lot of money on Thursday on Thanksgiving. Didn't work out.
Yeah, you had a pretty good sweat, right?
Never works out. So yeah, just a solid Thanksgiving slate. Probably talk about it more on the official recap pod.
Yeah.
So make sure you subscribe to that. But had a sweat or two, would have won a tournament, and I would have finished second in another tournament if they didn't overturn the Hunter Henry touchdown. So that was a $4,000 swing there.
That's actually a very tough scene. Very tough scene. But tomorrow is another chance to win it all back. Ricky, what up in the chat? Shout out everybody tuning in. Joey, let's get into it because we got a lot of stuff to talk about with this slate. A lot of stuff. Starting off at the quarterback position, where it appears to be the one position where there's not going to be major chalk. There's a ton of chalk at running back, ton of chalk at wide receiver, but at quarterback, things seems like it will be pretty spread out, and there are a variety of directions that you can go, all at different price points.
Yeah, so I mean, at the top, you obviously have Mahomes, who's been great over the last month of the season, putting up 4 straight 30-plus DraftKings points games. But you get him in a game right this week that has this game has a 42 total, one of the lowest totals on the slate, but the Chiefs have one of the highest totals on the slate at 28.75 implied team total. They're 15.5-point favorites. So you have some blowout risk with Patrick Mahomes there. You have Geno Smith at 6K, who is projecting to be the highest owned quarterback right now. And then you have some other good plays, in this mid-range, Joe Burrow, Kyler, Justin Herbert, Tua, etc., who all look good to me at least. But for cash games, I think the decision point is really, are you paying up to Patrick Mahomes or not? And, I know that you lean paying up to Mahomes, whereas I'm different. I think you're probably paying down to Geno or, one of Tua or Joe Burrow, let's say, one of those guys, probably Tua, just for game environment team total. But Geno Smith at 6K or Patrick Mahomes at 8,200. I mean, why do you lean Mahomes there?
Just think that, Mahomes right now is literally a walking 30 ball. He hasn't put up less than 30 points on DraftKings since week 6. They are so pass heavy. They're getting Juju back in this spot. And I'm not scared of the blowout risk. There was a spot very similar to this, like I want to say 2 years ago when they played the Jets, and Mahomes threw for 405 in a game where they didn't need him in the fourth quarter. Like, if they are hitting this game the way that their team total implies, it's through Patrick Mahomes. How do they not get there? How does Mahomes not get there? It would be like through a massive Isaiah Pacheco game. Is that going to happen tomorrow? Like, I don't know. You could play into that theory in tournaments if you want to leverage off of the chalky running backs and, try and take a shot on Pacheco and then Mahomes failing. But it just seems so likely to me that, Patrick Mahomes gets there even in a non-competitive game because of the pass rate and because they just literally don't want to run the ball. They want Mahomes to be the entire team, and he has been, and I think he will be in this spot.
Yeah, obviously Mahomes is a very good play. I do think the risk of this game getting out of hand definitely hinders Mahomes' ceiling a little bit. But still, nonetheless, if they're blowing the brakes off of the Rams, it's obviously going to be through Patrick Mahomes. I just think with some of the players at wide receiver that I kind of want to play at a higher price point, Um, and overall, just the way the lineup looks and feels with Geno, to me, is just better than the Patrick Mahomes lineup. Obviously, I think Patrick Mahomes is a better play than Geno Smith. But when we're taking a look at just the entire lineup construction and how I personally feel and what paying down to Geno allows you to do for the rest of your lineup, that's why I think Geno Smith is the better cash game play.
What are the differences that you're talking about that he allows you to get to? Because like I look at it like with Mahomes, you can still play Hopkins, you could still play Keenan Allen. It's like you can upgrade from Garrett Wilson to like T Higgins, but is that really worth it in my opinion? Like I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it is.
I mean, projections, I think would say if that's a clear 2v2, which I don't think it is.
It's not.
Um, but T Higgins is, projecting as the best value wide receiver on the slate right now with no Jamar Chase, no Joe Mixon, Garrett Wilson. T Higgins, if you're talking about that just 2v2, regardless of salary, the T Higgins, Geno Smith side is projecting better from a projected point standpoint. And these two don't know a thing.
Shout out to the homie, one of our biggest fans.
Yeah. So with the Geno Smith lineup, and you could play. We'll talk about the running backs that you're going to play, but you're locking in Jeff Wilson and Rashad White, and then you could lock in another running back, and then you could potentially play T Higgins, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen. Travis Kelce is also going to be chalk, and we could talk about that when we talk about tight ends, where you can get a majority of the Mahomes exposure through Travis Kelce on the slate if you really want to go that route. So all of those guys should be a little bit chalky. Geno Smith is going to be higher owned than Patrick Mahomes, but obviously you're comfortable not playing into, chalk that you think is bad. I don't think it's horrible because Geno Smith, front runner for comeback player of the year, 20 plus points is definitely within the range of outcomes in this game. One of the best game environments on the slate at home against one of the worst pass defenses in the league. Second highest total game on the slate. A lot of back and forth potential with the Raiders being 2-point favorites. So the Seahawks are home underdogs in this spot. I think the spot sets up really well for Geno. And ultimately, I think that Patrick Mahomes, to kill you, he needs 35 plus. So if he's not getting you 35, then I just don't really see a point to play him. Unless Geno fails.
Well, we don't have to go too deep into this, but I also think that it's more layered because like the way that I'm using the salary allocation would be like I'm fine playing Hopkins, Keenan, and Garrett Wilson, but I would rather play Kenneth Walker than say, P. Ryan or Latavius as a third running back because I think that he does also have a ceiling, and those guys are a lot thinner in my opinion than Wilson and White, who we'll get to as we get to running back. But I just think that, you can get your exposure to that game. And if you look through Geno's game log, he's been in good spots and he's put up under 20 points or 20 points. And I just don't know that, Mahomes has a floor that low, even in a blowout. So I don't know. It's just about where you're comfortable spending the money. I think that no matter what, you can put together a pretty good lineup with Geno, with Mahomes. I don't think it's clear one way or the other. I just personally am on the side of Mahomes. Sounds like you are on the side of Geno. And I think that both lineups are really good this week, which is, what makes it such an interesting week and why we've talked about like why DraftKings needs to loosen up the salary, because it makes it so things aren't clear cut. You have to do this way or else, you're dead. You're part of the rake. Like there are different viable ways you can go this week, which sets up really well, especially for tournaments. So, we kind of hit on what we're doing, at the quarterback position in cash, either Mahomes or Geno, but everything in between looks really good for tournaments. I mean, I don't know if you have a favorite play at the quarterback position. I personally am extremely intrigued by both sides of this Chargers-Arizona game. I love Kyler Murray this week. I think Herbert's a great play as well. Do you have a lean in terms of where you foresee yourself going in tournaments at quarterback and what stacks you'll be building?
Yeah, I mean, I love that game. Obviously, highest total game on the slate. Injuries have definitely condensed both offenses to certain players like DeAndre Hopkins, who's a smash play this week, Keenan Allen, who's going to be super chalky. So finding ways to get different in that game, definitely makes a ton of sense. Personally, I love the Joe Burrow stack as well. If you're getting Joe Burrow as one of the lower owned quarterbacks on the slate with stackable options in T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst, a very condensed target share this week for the Bengals offense. And it's obviously a very tough spot for them on the ground going up against this Tennessee rush defense that is like first in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game. They've only given up one 100-yard rusher to opposing teams. So this is a spot where the Bengals are going to have to throw the ball and beat the Titans through the air, which is a very beatable secondary with some injuries on the back end. So Joe Burrow, 6,700, definitely one of my favorites. But Herbert and Kyler are right up there as well.
All right, let's take a break real quick and answer some questions from the chat. Eckler or Walker? I mean, if we're talking DraftKings price included, I think I like Walker this week, especially for cash, but Eckler is a phenomenal pay up option in tournaments.
All right.
Mike White, worth a shot, drafted a goal line with him. Goal line with him? Not sure what that means. Line up with him? Not sure. Mike White this week? Question mark?
Nah. ETN. I mean, we'll talk about the running backs when we get to running back.
Yeah, for sure. All right. In terms of some of the other quarterbacks, like I said, I really like Kyler this week with the condensed target share. I think you can single stack him with DeAndre Hopkins. If you want to add a double, I would be inclined to go with Trey McBride over the, fringe wide receivers like Robbie or AJ Green at this point in their respective careers. Joe Burrow, love the call there. We talked about Lamar Jackson on the early week preview podcast. I don't know if you're still in on that, but I definitely am. I really like the idea of playing Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews with a Christian Kirk bring back or Travis Etienne if you want to go that route. But either way, two very clear bringbacks on the Jag side of the balls, both with pretty strong ceilings. And Lamar's going to go under-owned as one of, I would say, the 2 or 3 quarterbacks on this slate that has access to a 40-point ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, I like Lamar. Just the lack of weapons definitely hinders his ceiling. And no, even with his rushing upside at 8K, like you need multiple touchdowns through the air. You need a good passing game along with the rushing upside to get you there. And it's kind of like the same argument for Mahomes. Like at 8K, they really need you. You really need them to get, 35, 38 DraftKings points, right? And Mahomes just isn't doing it on the ground, like a Josh Allen, which makes Josh Allen so good. And Lamar Jackson isn't doing it through the air. And as we see, I mean, his ceiling is obviously sky high when he gets the 100-yard bonus, but you look at his passing games as well, 4 passing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns. And I'm just very skeptical that he can do this right here with the current weapons on the Ravens team, especially the pass catchers.
Yeah, no, for sure. Stone Style Design in the chat. You don't need to play Lamar with Andrews. He can get there on his own. You're absolutely right. The only reason you would be playing Lamar is just sort of, playing into a theory where Mahomes doesn't go nuke because they're blowing out the Rams. And then, Herbert, Kyler, 2 teams that perpetually disappoint. Tua, game script, he could get scripted out of a pass heavy game script. Like there's definitely paths, I think, to many of the quarterbacks failing on this slate. Like, would it shock you if the Bengals offense didn't perform, at a ceiling, slate breaking level with their 2 best offensive skill position players out? It wouldn't surprise me at all. And then, as I mentioned, there's bear cases for a lot of these quarterbacks. So I don't know, man. I think that you can definitely play Lamar Jackson in a week where his ownership is very low and targets are even more consolidated. But I hear you, you definitely do need 3+ passing touchdowns in addition to like a 100-yard rushing game, which, I mean, could it happen? It could happen. Like Demarcus Robinson had a big week last week. Mark Andrews is always live to go for 102. It's thin, but that's why it's a large field tournament play.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I just think that, these mid-range quarterbacks are probably better plays than the top end quarterbacks. That's kind of where I'm at for this week, especially with the game environments and some of the other players that are going to be chalk that you're probably going to want to play, like Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, T. Higgins, all pricey wide receivers, all in smash spots, and some other players across different positions. So I'm on the take that mid-range quarterback is better than paying up for quarterback this week.
Yeah, so Burrow's your guy in the mid-range?
Yeah, I like Burrow. Kyler looks good to me. Geno Smith definitely for cash, I think, is the best cash game quarterback. So yeah, that's my opinion on the quarterback position.
And we're not stone punting it off, are we?
I mean, absolutely not. Who are you punting it to if you do punt? Like, there's nobody.
Yeah, it would be like, I don't know, Taylor Heineke at 5,300, like Kyle Allen at 48. Like, no, it's just so disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, you're not playing any of those guys.
Yeah, Kyler playing too much COD, sadly. That's probably a huge factor. Probably should lean on the Justin Herbert side of that game. All right, let's hit on the story of the week, Joey, which is this running back position. Okay. We talked about this earlier in the week, and the slate has completely shifted. Every guy that we thought, may have a chance to play has been ruled out. And then even guys who weren't on our radar as far as injury risk have gotten ruled out, such as Raheem Mostert. Like, we were talking about playing Jeff Wilson as chalk, with Raheem Mostert in. Now Raheem Mostert's out. Leonard Fournette is out. Rashad White is wildly underpriced. Joe Mixon is out. Samaje Perine coming off of a 3-touchdown game. Perine's 5,600. Latavius Murray's 5K. And they cut Melvin Gordon. He's the last back with a pulse on that team besides Marlon Mack. So we have 4 running backs below 6K who are all locked in to massive workloads. How are you ranking these guys from cash games?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Wilson and Rashad White are locks.
Yeah.
Like, there's no if, ands, or buts about it. Jeff Wilson, lead back in one of the best offenses in the NFL with one of the highest team totals of the week. The Dolphins have with a what's their team total looking like? 30.5 right now.
Yep.
Yeah,
Highest on the slate, 14-point home favorites against the worst rush defense in the league. I mean, bro.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson is a stone lock. Like, you have to play Jeff Wilson in every lineup, without a doubt. If you're not playing Jeff Wilson, you're clear cut making a mistake tomorrow, especially in cash games. And there's really nothing else to say about it. Rashad White, 5,100, definitely the second best play for sure. He's projecting as a solid value. One of the better team totals on the slate the Bucks have, right? They're up there as well. Or they have a 23 total. It's actually been bet down. There is some weather concerns. I don't know if you saw that there could be some winds there, which might help Rashad White's volume. And as we saw here, 22 attempts last week, no catches, but I think he'll probably get a couple more opportunities in the receiving game. But if I'm not mistaken, Giovanni Bernard returned from IR. So
Gio is active in this game.
Yes. Yep. So he returned. He's active. That's definitely something to be cautious about. And I wouldn't be afraid to fade Rashad White in tournaments, just because he hasn't been that efficient as a player. But obviously the spot is very good. Cleveland is giving up over 135 rushing yards per game, which is bottom 8 in the NFL. It's obviously a very good spot. 5,100, you're playing him. Then you got Latavius, Samaje Perine, Kenneth Walker, and probably like Austin Eckler or James Conner as the next couple guys in terms of cash consideration. As it stands right now, projections have James Conner as a better value than Kenneth Walker, but Walker is going to be higher owned. So do you have a lean between Walker and James Conner in both of these spots? I mean, both are in pretty smash spots.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely leaning with Kenneth Walker here right now. I mean, they have a much better team total. It is currently 3 points higher. They are favored, whereas the Cardinals are not favored in this spot.
No, the Seahawks aren't favored.
Seahawks aren't favored.
Oh no, they are.
Yeah, they're
They're 4-point
Seahawks.
favorites.
Yep. Yep. Seahawks are favored. Raiders are giving up the fourth most fantasy points to opposing running backs, over 27 per game. Kenneth Walker has a chokehold on this backfield, as does Connor and as does Eckler, as we mentioned. But I just think that Kenneth Walker is such a good play this week. I think the matchup is right. I think the game environment is right. And we even saw him get more involved in the passing game in their last outing. They're coming off of a bye. This is just a spot where I think the Seahawks should absolutely slaughter the Raiders, and Walker's a huge part of it. I think that there are very clear paths to failure as well for Samaje Perine and Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray is stone cold dust on the absolute worst offense in the NFL. So, the bear case there writes itself. And then with Samaje Perine, there's even been talk from the Bengals coaches this week that they want to utilize him more in the Joe Mixon role, which is the first and second down role, and then use some of the ancillary guys like Chris Evans in the traditional Samaje Perine role. So I don't know. I don't think Samaje is some great play this week. Like in other weeks, we would probably roll him without thinking. But just in general, against one of the toughest defenses against running backs, as you referenced, and with them not feeding Perine, I think, in the same way that they feed Mixon with a guaranteed workload, I think it's totally reasonable to get away from these guys and play one of Walker or Connor in cash games. I don't know if you agree with that take.
No, I mean, I think from a projection standpoint, Perine is okay, and you could definitely go there, especially if you want to just go the 3 running backs under 6K route. I think he's fine, but I definitely think he is a little bit more fragile than the projections will say, for sure. Latavius Murray, I mean, you hit every point on the head. Just old dust ball at running back. He's going to average 2 to 3 yards per carry. The only way he beats you is if he scores multiple touchdowns in this game, and the Broncos can't even score over 20 points.
No.
So I'll take my chances fading Latavius Murray, even though he has scored 4 touchdowns this year since he's been on the Broncos. So he is a touchdown threat there, but definitely fine fading Latavius Murray in cash. My lean right now is probably deciding between one of James Conner or Kenneth Walker. I think playing Kenneth Walker and Geno Smith is okay. Obviously, it's not optimal, but with both players projecting as well as they are, I think it's okay this week. Both obviously are in very, very good spots, Geno Smith and Kenneth Walker, that is. So definitely don't mind that. Like I said, James Conner is projecting as a better value than Kenneth Walker, and I think James Conner is probably a bigger threat to have more work in the passing game this week than Kenneth Walker. So you're getting a little bit more pass catching upside there, and the matchup is just as good, if not better. The Chargers are giving up 148.4 rushing yards per game, which is third worst in the NFL. They're giving up more rushing yards per game than the Raiders, who are 20th in the league, only giving up 122. But Kenneth Walker is a better, more talented player, has more juice. James Conner's just slow. But I think James Conner is a very, very good play this week. Even with me thinking he's slow.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, workload and game environment make him a very good play. Matchup as well. Yeah, you referenced the matchup being better. Chargers have allowed the third most points to opposing running backs. Raiders have allowed the fourth. And then we got Browns at second and Texans at first, all going up against the chalkiest running backs on the slate. Like all these spots are so good. So obviously, all right, those are the cash plays, right? You're not really considering anybody outside of, I would say, those 6 running backs in cash. I don't think that it makes very much sense to pay up for Eckler or Henry or any of the top tier guys in tournaments, though. Okay, this is where things get interesting. Running back chalk is traditionally the best chalk. It's usually the most projectable. It's usually going to be the closest in terms of projection versus actual outcome. How are you attacking these running backs in tournaments? Who do you feel most comfortable fading? Who do you feel least comfortable fading? I think personally that Jeff Wilson is unfadable in this spot. I think the only way that he doesn't get there in a big way would be via injury.
Yeah, I honestly don't see a scenario in which Jeff Wilson doesn't put up 20 plus points this week.
Yeah,
I
it's just
mean,
not happening.
I mean, yeah, he can get hurt, so obviously you play into that, risk by fading him in tournaments. Because any player can get hurt any single week. It's the NFL. A lot of things happen. Maybe he doesn't score a touchdown. He only gets you, a 100-yard bonus. Like he goes, let's say 17 carries, 110 yards, and like 2 catches for 15 yards. Like even then, like
Yeah.
that's still a good game. At 5,900, that's like 15 DraftKings points right there. Um, I don't know. I don't see a way in which Jeff Wilson fails. So I'm going to be playing Jeff Wilson in every single lineup.
Yeah,
And
because I mean, the fact of the matter is, yes, he is going to be wildly owned in cash games. He'll probably be 85 to 90% in tournaments. I could definitely see him getting close to 50 in large field. I think in small fields, he's like 60 to 70, to be honest. But if he's less than 100, you've still got some leverage. If you're overweight with 100% Jeff Wilson Jr., I think it's the only way to play this slate. Definitely how I'm going to play it. That being said, I think that you can definitely get away from some of the other running backs, especially like we said, Latavius, very easy to get away from, in my opinion. Samaje
Mhm.
Perine, also very easy to get away from, in my opinion. Rachaad White is a little bit tougher because the matchup is so good. I think the weather concerns strengthen the case for Rachaad White, right? Like if it's going to be more of a ground and pound type of game, less stuff through the air because it's potentially going to be windy and rainy, that just strengthens Rachaad White. And Cleveland is an absolute run funnel defense right now. But Tampa Bay's offense has shown a propensity to completely fall flat. Rachaad White, like you mentioned, hasn't been the most efficient back. So he's a slightly scarier fade, in my opinion, than Pirine and Latavius. But I still think that there are cases to get away from him. A very contrarian way to play this entire slate would be going 4 wide receivers because of all the running back value. I think almost all lineups are going to come preloaded with 3 running backs. So if you play Wilson and then maybe one of the other second tier chalk running backs like Walker or Connor, and then just fade all of the other guys in a lineup, I think that, you can get there that way in tournaments. I don't know. How do you feel about these guys, and how comfortable are you fading the non Jeff Wilson Jr. chalk running backs this week?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit already. Latavius Murray, very fadeable. Samaje Perine is fadeable. I think Rachaad White is fadeable for sure. Just need multiple touchdowns, in my opinion, from Rachaad White to really kill you in tournaments. And you mentioned it. This Bucks offense can just fall on their face at any given moment. Even with it being a good spot, and Gio Bernard is back. So what if Gio Bernard is the pass game back? What if Rachaad White has no reception upside this week?
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think that's true, but definitely some risk there with Gio being active, ready to go. I don't think you're paying up.
Ricky says
Latavius,
Latavius is him. Latavius is not him, bro.
bro, Latavius starts with an L. All right. Yeah, you're not paying up to running back, Josh. You're not paying up to running back in cash. Absolutely no shot. But just taking a look at the projections, literally any running back you choose, like it'd be hard to not get a positive value out of them this week.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen this list of running backs that I'm looking at right now where there's so many positive values at running back. Literally talking about the bad plays would be easier than talking about the good plays. Like Kamara, CPAT, Nick Chubb are the guys that are projecting as negative values above 6K.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, God, David Montgomery without Fields there is probably going to get 30 looks. No Fields, no Herbert. He's going to be their entire offense. Trevor Siemian, 30 plus handoffs to Demont incoming. ETN, somebody mentioned
Is
in the
Fields
chat,
out?
I think is really good. Not confirmed yet, not confirmed, but they did activate Nathan Peterman to the active roster today, which is a sign. And I think the spread moved, if I'm not mistaken, right now. Jets are 7-point favorites. So I mean or I'm sorry, no, it was 7. It's 4.5. So maybe that actually indicates that Fields could be active. I don't know. We'll find out in terms of that. Ricky, yeah, Jets D eating. Fields injured or Trevor Siemian, either way, Jets D is going to eat this week, 100%. Yeah, so I don't know. How do you feel about paying up in tournaments though? Like, can you get up to Henry? Can you get up to CMC or Eckler in these spots? Really, what you're looking for is for, the running backs that everyone's going to play to only get 15 or so versus these guys popping up for a 35 plus spot. So, I mean, do you see any of these running backs going for monster games this week?
I mean, it's definitely in the range for CMC and Eckler. Like Eckler is projecting really, really well right now. Same arguments, for James Conner can be said for Austin Eckler, but he's just priced $2,000 more. Eckler and CMC have two of, if not, the highest ceilings on the slate. But you obviously just have to compare it to the rest of the running backs that they're competing against. And with so many good players and good plays at the running back position this week at cheaper price points, I don't see how paying up to running back is optimal unless one of these guys drops a 40 ball. But even then, like you're still fading Jeff Wilson dropping 30. You're still fading Rachaad White dropping 25. If Rachaad White drops 25 at 5.1K, what is Eckler's 35 ball doing? Nothing.
Exactly. And I mean, we saw this, I want to say, in week 8 when CMC put up 40 points and Derrick Henry put up 38 points, and they were both, obviously monster plays. It didn't make a huge difference because Tony Pollard put up 36 in a similar spot to like what Wilson's in now. Deontay Foreman put up 34 points that week. So yeah, you got 6 points, but you paid $3K plus more to get it. And it just ends up not being optimal at all. So like you really not only need for the running backs to hit a top tier ceiling game and get you 35 plus, but you also need these other running backs that are in goated spots to fail. You're just asking for a lot, I think, to get there.
Because obviously it's asking a lot just for your player to hit, right? And to hit in a meaningful way. It's asking a lot more for your player to hit, their 95th, 99th percentile outcome, and then other great plays 2,000 or 3,000 cheaper to just completely bust and fall on their face in prime matchups. Jeff Wilson, I'm pretty sure Jeff Wilson projection right now is the best value of the entire year.
Yeah, I think it is. The only thing that strikes me as close was the Ramondre week, but
and
Jeff Wilson's better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, God, I mean, you could poke holes in a lot of these plays in the cheap end, but I think they still pretty much all hit in a semi-meaningful way this week.
Yep. I totally agree with that because, yeah, I mean, we've already beat it to death. In the chat, Jared says Latavius over 11.5 receiving yards is a lock. Jared is a prize picks savant. So, I mean, take that as you will. I think that's probably a really strong bet. Eric and Ricky are debating Justin Fields here. Fields will warm up game time decision, only play if he's 100%. I mean, he's not 100% if he has to be a game time decision based on pregame warmups, is he? So that kind of answers that in my opinion. Schefter also says he's unlikely to play. I don't think Fields plays, but maybe he does. Even if he does, what's hobble Justin Fields going up against one of the best defenses in the league going to do? Not too much.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. It's probably, you said Trevor Siemian.
Yeah.
Starting. Yeah. Trevor Siemian's probably starting this game. Nathan Peterman will be the backup. Just kind of want no parts of that game. Like there's so many good spots on the slate and so many good players. Like I'm not wasting a roster spot on a Bear or a Jet this week with Mike White and fucking Trevor Siemian as the starting quarterbacks. Like, come on.
Well said. Any other running back long shots that you would like to discuss here?
Nah, I mean, I don't think this is the week to get off the board at running back.
No.
Maybe you pivot to like Gibson in that range, of the cheap running back at home against Atlanta, one of the, more susceptible run defenses. They haven't been too bad. They're 21st in the league in rushing yards allowed so far this season. But Antonio Gibson has had more touches than Brian Robinson. He plays in the passing game with no J.D. McKissick there, who went to IR 2 weeks ago. I think he's a solid pivot off of Latavius or Rashad White. Do you have any interest in Isaiah Pacheco potentially? Blowout game against the Rams. Obviously, the Chiefs are gonna, beat the brakes off of this Rams team as it stands right now. Pacheco could get a ton of work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's outside of Pacheco's range to have a ceiling game, especially in this spot as home favorites, 13-point favorites. Like, yeah, I mean, the Rams have no life left. They are literally dead men walking. So, yeah, I think Pacheco's definitely a good tournament play. I'm not sure what his updated ownership is. Taking a look right now.
Top Shot Johnny says, wow, what a surprise. All you guys do is agree on everything. Well,
yeah, you must be
Johnny,
new here, buddy.
Well, Johnny, we're talking about running backs for week 12 on DraftKings. If you're not on these running backs, send me a head-to-head, please, for any amount of money. That's why we're agreeing, because they're the best fucking plays. We literally just disagreed on which quarterback we prefer for cash. Ben prefers Mahomes. I prefer Geno Smith. And we disagree a ton. We have segments where we literally debate on our podcast. So you're definitely new here. But shout out to you for watching. If you want, you can send us a head-to-head. We're talking about the position where everybody should be agreeing this week. Literally.
Yeah.
If you're disagreeing with us, you're going to lose money.
That's a fair point, but I mean, his name is Top Shot Johnny, so if he was big into Top Shot, he's used to losing money.
Yeah, he's already broke, so there's that.
There's that. Yeah, no, I think Pacheco's actually a good play. If there's any chance that, Mahomes isn't getting there, it's probably because Pacheco's having the best game of his career and scoring 2 touchdowns, which I don't think is impossible. I legitimately don't think it's impossible for Pacheco to have a multi-touchdown game in this spot. He just showed that he can get 100 yards in a game. Obviously, it's a much better matchup, but the game environment is so good, and the Rams are dead in the water. So I like him for tournaments, and he looks like he's going to be about let's see, under 10%. So pretty good leverage off of these other chalk backs in the same price range. I made 30K from Top Shot. Joke's on you. All right. So you can afford to send us a head-to-head with the other running backs that you won't be playing. No Jeff Wilson, no Rashad White. I'll take that head-to-head any day.
Can't even use the right than.
Crazy. What a time to be alive. All right. That's definitely it for the running back position, right? Yeah. All right. So wide receiver. Wide receiver. I don't know. How do we want to attack wide receiver this week? Personally, DeAndre Hopkins to me is looking like the go-to pay up option. I don't know, for fear of getting called out by Top Shot. I don't know, but I feel like you must agree with Hopkins being a great play.
DeAndre Hopkins is a very, very good play this week. I mean, look at his game log. Look at the screen. 12 plus targets in 4 out of 5 games. Just upside is extremely high. Him and Kyler Murray clearly have a very good connection with each other. And you lose Greg Dortch. You lose Rondale Moore. Hollywood Brown is going to be active, but he's going to be limited. Robbie Anderson, non-factor. AJ Green, non-factor. Zach Ertz also gone. So you have Trey McBride coming in, but Trey McBride's upside is obviously very low. So this target share in this Cardinals offense is going to condense around DeAndre Hopkins and James Conner this week. I think DeAndre Hopkins is a lock for at least 10 plus targets in this spot. Best game environment on the slate. I mean, I think you're locking them in cash, personally. The real debate comes with what are you going to do with your 2 other wide receiver positions? Because this is a 3 running back week with all the running back value that we have. And you could go a correlated route and correlate, your Geno Smith play, this would be for my lineup, correlate Geno Smith with Devontae Adams, who is projecting as one of the best plays on the slate. And I mean, Devontae Adams' upside is just extremely high.
Yeah.
5 targets in a game. He comes out, says like that, nah, we can't do that. Ever since then, what do we see? Devontae Adams lock in, or Derek Carr lock in on Devontae Adams. No Darren Waller, no Hunter Renfrow. Beatable matchup against the Seahawks secondary. I think Devontae Adams is a very, very good play this week. I don't know about you. T. Higgins, 6,900, I think is also a very good play with no Jamar Chase, no Joe Mixon. I already said this, but this Bengals offense is going to flow through the passing game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's a very beatable spot. T. Higgins coming off of one of his best games of the year. I think you could probably lock in 10 targets for T. And obviously, he's a very talented player himself. So, I don't know. These guys are all so good. There's definitely routes that you can go and cash where you can play all three and make this work right here. Because you have your pay down tight end, you have your pay down defense, you have Geno Smith at 6K, and that'll leave you enough for a well projecting flex. So haven't really decided what route I'm going to go yet in cash, but these 3 wide receivers are definitely my top 3 plays on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that. I mean, projections definitely agree with you in terms of T. Higgins, but I mean, do you think that he's significantly that much better than Keenan Allen in this spot? I guess that's what really is the differentiator for me, is that Keenan Allen is, $800 cheaper. And I think just as good of a play with just as good a target upside in this spot without Mike Williams there, and with, the back and forth potential in this game. Good matchup against Arizona, should be Justin Fields' safety blanket, or I'm sorry, Justin Herbert's safety blanket in this spot.
Yeah, no, I think Keenan Allen is a very good play, and T. Higgins is, like I said earlier, is projecting as the best value at the out of every wide receiver on this slate. And he's projecting, about 2.5 points higher than Keenan right now, but he's also 800 more. I think that their target floors and I think their target floor and just overall like fantasy floor is relatively close, but I think T. Higgins' ceiling is extremely higher. I think T. Higgins at this point is a more talented player. I think that T. Higgins honestly, he just has higher upside. And in cash, I'm considering upside. I'm considering, a player hitting his ceiling. And I think this is a good spot for T. Higgins to hit his ceiling. Keenan Allen, is he fully healthy still? Is there still some re-aggravation risk with his injury? Could easily happen. Obviously, he comes back, gets 8 targets last week against the Chiefs. Good spot once again. I think he's a good play, but I do prefer T for all of the reasons that I mentioned.
Yeah, no, I don't dislike it. Keenan played 68% of snaps in his first game back since week 7. I think that probably gets, quite a bit higher this week, honestly. Should be back up in that 85 to 90% range where he usually lives. I think Keenan is a phenomenal play. And then there are some cheap wide receivers this week I think people will be considering for cash. If you're in on the Patrick Mahomes build, you're likely going to be playing one of Garrett Wilson or Treylon Burks, going with the rookies right now that are ascending. Garrett Wilson will be far more popular in cash games, catching passes from Mike White. I'm not sure how you feel about Garrett Wilson. I know you said that you were sort of interested in just not wasting roster spots on Bears or Jets on this slate. Do you feel like Garrett Wilson's sort of out of play in cash for that reason, or would you consider him still?
Nah, I mean, you definitely have to consider Garrett Wilson, just because he's cheap and he's projecting well right now, but I think he's a good play. I don't think it's necessary though, but he is going to be one of, if not the highest owned wide receiver on the slate, just because there's going to be a lot of builds out there where people pay up to Travis Kelce, people pay up to DeAndre Hopkins and Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams, 2 expensive wide receivers, probably Kenneth Walker as well, who's 6,900. So you're going to need a salary piece, outside of tight end and defense to make all of that fit. Garrett Wilson is that piece. So just from a lineup construction standpoint, he's a good play. But obviously the game is just horrible. Mike White is probably just so bad. But Garrett Wilson can still easily get there, even with, those factors against him. But I think it's okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, at almost 30% ownership in tournaments, pretty easy to fade, right?
Yeah, I think Garrett Wilson is an easy fade, especially, you said Treylon Burks. Burks's ownership projection is what, like more than half of Garrett Wilson's right now. So I think that's an easy pivot right there, going from Garrett Wilson to Treylon Burks. And you have MVS 4K. Nobody's going to play him. Juju's back, but McCole Hardman is still out. That seems okay to me. Is there any other cheap pivots that you would make in this low 4K range?
No, I mean, I think Burks is pretty clearly like the straight line pivot off of Garrett Wilson for tournaments. MVS, you can definitely play as a contrarian way to get into some Patrick Mahomes stuff. Kelsey's really going to be the only guy that gets owned in that game. I mean, Justin Watson has arguably been a better player than MVS. Like, if you want to just stone punt it off there. And do we have official confirmation yet on Greg Dortch?
I don't think we do. I think he's questionable. I can pull up the DraftKings log right here. What is he, 3,100?
Yeah.
Greg Dortch. Yeah, Greg Dortch is questionable with a thumb injury. Didn't practice at all this week. Rondale Moore is also dealing with a groin injury. Don't believe he practiced either at all.
We actually just got a Schefter bomb 9 minutes ago that Greg Dortch listed as questionable with the thumb injury, is unlikely to play. Rondale Moore is ruled out. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think that, some people might try and talk themselves into a cheap Robbie Anderson or AJ Green, but I just think the answer is all DeAndre Hopkins. And honestly, you talked about Trey McBride's ceiling being limited, but I think he's one of the better tournament tight ends to play this week, but I guess we can get to that at tight end. Ricky asks, is it bad not to have anyone in the Seahawks game? Probably. Both wide receivers are projecting really well. Kenneth Walker is projecting really well. Yeah, Hollywood Brown is back, but he doesn't seem like he's 100% from the things that I've read. Price tag is certainly really strong on Hollywood at 5,300. I think he's fine in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, definitely fine. I mean, the Cardinals just need bodies out there.
Yeah.
And if he's good to go, it's definitely a spot to buy in, coming off injury. Hollywood was one of the best fantasy wide receivers prior to his departure in fantasy. No game under 10 fantasy points this year. So I think he's definitely a good pivot in this mid-range for sure in tournaments. Juju Smith going to have no ownership, 5,700 back from his concussion. Tyler Boyd looks okay as part of Joe Burrow stacks as a pivot off Keenan Allen, Chalk, Godwin, one of the only players to have what is this, 6+ catches in 6 straight games, but the ceiling is just so low with Godwin right now.
Yeah.
But I think he's okay as a pivot. Lockett and DK Metcalf are my favorite in this range for tournaments, especially with Geno Smith being a little bit chalky, but Lockett and Metcalf aren't carrying any ownership as well. I think that they are some of my favorite tournament plays at wide receiver for sure. And this 6K range in general, in my opinion, is just loaded. You have Christian Kirk, the Seahawks guys, Chris Olave, 6,600. Nobody's going to play Olave, going up against San Francisco. A lot of good pivots, in my opinion.
Yeah, like a lot. I mean, Terry McLaurin is 5,800 in the nut matchup with an elite target share in every single game that Taylor Heineke's been there. Like you mentioned, Juju. I think Juju is a great play at 5,700. We'd be a lot more interested in him if it weren't for the context of the slate. Like, I think we'd probably be talking about him in cash game consideration, if not for just the way that, the build is pushing us out of this price range, but he is coming off of a concussion, which is not something that should hinder him in any way whatsoever. So with the other injuries to, like Mecole Hardman and Kadarius Toney, Juju Smith-Schuster should be, a shoe in here for 8+ targets, I think. Yeah, both Seahawks guys are phenomenal plays. I like Tyler Boyd, like you mentioned. Then you could get into stuff with like Cortland Sutton is great leverage off of Latavius Murray. He's the only body out there right now at wide receiver for Denver. Palmer, I think, is a really good tournament play this week. Even, with Keenan Allen back, we've talked about why Josh Palmer is such a great play this year because he can slide into either role, right? He can play the Mike Williams role or he can play the Keenan Allen role. And fortunately for him, these guys are never on the field at the same time. Mike Williams is out, Keenan comes back, Keenan is out, Mike Williams is in. So he's just been getting utilized a ton. If you look at his game log, 12 targets, 10 targets, 8 targets, 10 targets coming off of a 33-point game last week, should be another good game environment here. So I think Palmer's a really, really strong tournament play, but probably no need to go there in cash this week.
Yeah, no, very, very strong tournament play. You're not playing him in cash with some of the top wide receivers on the slate and a good pay down option and Garrett Wilson. Don't really have any other thoughts. I think that my favorite play on the slate, obviously DeAndre Hopkins, 7,700. I think he's just a total smash this week against this Chargers team. I think Josh Palmer is definitely a very, very good tournament play. I like that call a ton. The Chiefs guys look okay. If the Chiefs are hitting their team total, it's because Mahomes is throwing multiple touchdowns and these Chiefs guys are probably getting there. So definitely love that for sure. Do you have a long shot you want to give the people? Who's a tournament winner?
Oh, do I ever? I got a long shot for you, Joey. Nobody is going to play this man on DraftKings this week, and he needs to be played. He's a theory play. He's a great leverage play, okay? Jalen Waddle at 7,300, right? Jeff Wilson Jr., stone cold chalk. He's going to be probably the chalkiest player we've had on DraftKings all year. Tyreek Hill is going to carry some ownership, but Jalen Waddle is just priced in this weird range where nobody's going to play him. They're just going to pay up for Hopkins, Adams, or Tyreek, or they'll pay down to all these good value guys in the mid-range that we've talked about. I think Waddle goes completely under the radar, and both him and Tyreek Hill have 30+ point upside every time they touch the field in this offense, and the Dolphins have an incredible team total. It was a couple of weeks ago, I think it was in the Detroit game, where Jalen Waddle had 30 points by halftime, 2 touchdowns in the first half. Like, that could happen easily for him in this game. He's not some slam dunk play, but I just think from like a leverage perspective and the fact that he's going to be like 5% owned this week with a sky high 30+ point ceiling makes a ton of sense to play Waddle. If you are maybe running one sick ass lineup without Jeff Wilson Jr. in it, maybe it's like a Tua double or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Waddle, definitely a very good play. And these Dolphins receivers could go absolutely nuclear, for sure. The Texans have actually been really good at stopping opposing wide receivers. Like, they're top of the league in terms of passing yards allowed, touchdowns allowed to opposing wide receivers. But, that's just because they get down early and teams just are forced into a run heavy game script, which obviously works in Jeff Wilson's favor. So we'd have to have the Dolphins just keep their foot on the gas and let Tua just go out and rip it for Waddle and Tyreek to hit their ceilings in the spot. But who knows? Maybe they do that. Maybe Mike McDaniels just tells Tua to go out there and ball and drop 50 on the Texans' head.
I mean, it could easily happen. I'm looking up right now to see if Derek Stingley is going to play. He has sort of been their star cornerback for the Texans, and he has been ruled out for the second consecutive week, which I think strengthens the case for both Tyreek and Waddle this week.
Yep. So definitely love Waddle for sure.
So that's my long shot. I was really big on Mike Evans this week with Godwin projecting to be chalk and, Fournette ruled out. I still think you can go there, but I mean, with the weather concerns, it's a little bit thinner. That's something that we'll have to wait and see on. Although, to be honest, like the weather reports that I'm looking at right now don't seem to be projecting this to be as bad as, like, I guess the touts out there are talking about it to be. It's going to be like 10 to 15 miles per hour winds, which isn't, anything crazy, nothing that gets us, off of a play like that. Good chance for rain. I don't know. We'll look at it again in the morning and talk it over in Discord. But I think if we're not like scared off of this game for weather reasons, Mike Evans is a phenomenal play as well.
Yeah, definitely going to have to see about the weather. So make sure you join the Discord if you want to hear about our thoughts after that. It's definitely going to be tomorrow morning for sure. You can go in and ask us and tag us. We'll be available all day, every day, pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah, so I gotta give the people a call. I hit on T. Higgins last week, right on this stream.
Mm-hmm.
I said you need T. Higgins to win a millie. He was in the Millie Maker winner. Actually been running kind of hot with my tournament calls lately.
You have been.
Nelson Aguilar on Thanksgiving,
Yep.
Millie winner. T.
Yep.
Higgins last slate, Millie winner.
So who is it this week? You got to enlighten the people.
Damn. Honestly, I think it's Lockett or Metcalf, man.
Yeah.
I think it's Lockett or Metcalf. I'll say I got to pick one. I'll say DK Metcalf.
You got to go with Metcalf, bro. He's a stone cold alpha. Tyler Lockett, haven't checked in on this in a while, but last I checked, still a virgin beta bitch. So.
Is he can't still be a virgin.
Bro,
there's no shot.
It's a personal choice thing,
There's no shot he's still a virgin.
I think he is, man. I think he is.
No, he's not. There's no
DM him and ask. Be like, yo, I'm trying to decide if I should play you on DraftKings tomorrow. Do you fuck? Yes or no?
He's just gonna say no. yeah, but DK Metcalf, that's my call for tournament winner this week. Geno Smith going to be relatively owned, if not the highest owned quarterback on the slate. DK Metcalf right now. What's DK Metcalf projecting for? 12%. Can we highlight that comment? That is a funny comment.
That's funny.
That's a funny comment. Every time we get trolled, my mind automatically goes to just being on fantasy Twitter and just imagining if I was one of these people in fantasy Twitter, bro, they would cry over that.
Yes.
Over that comment.
Absolutely.
Like, bro, I saw people on Twitter legit about to be in tears because they thought Twitter was just going to somehow magically disappear overnight because Elon Musk bought it and took it over. Like, oh my God. I question how unintelligent people are every single day. Like,
it's a valid question that
like,
offers,
bro, Twitter just isn't gonna fucking die. Why are you crying about it? Like, come on. That's a little bit of a tangent, but that's where my mind goes to when people troll, because I don't take that shit serious. That was a funny comment. Shout out to you, Fresh.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Fresh, viewer every single week. Josh says, how much does Gio Bernard cut into White's workload? I don't think it's that much. I mean, I think that, Rachaad White is going to get 20 plus touches in this game, barring injury.
Yep, totally agree. All right, tight end.
Also, Mr. Torian, we'll get into a couple game stacks. We'll build a couple teams to close things out after we finish tight end here. Yeah, so tight end this week. Joey, I mean, there's a ton of value this week at tight end, but there's also so much salary that we can get up to the high price guys. So it's kind of really like building this interesting dynamic where, the top guys are going to be chalky. Like Kelsey and Andrews are going to be two of the highest 4 owned tight ends on the slate. But then you've also got big ownership projections on Hayden Hurst. I think Foster Moreau in the nut spot is going to be very owned. Guys like Dulcich, Trey McBride, also in play. So, I mean, what's your lean? I mean, there's no way that we're paying up in cash, right?
I'm probably not paying up in cash. Just don't think it's necessary. I do think Travis Kelce is a good play. And, I mentioned that you can get a lot of your Mahomes exposure through Travis Kelce because the offense is obviously just going to funnel through him at the end of the day. And if Mahomes is having a big game, Travis Kelce's probably getting dragged along with Mahomes. And in that scenario, you could play Travis Kelce at tight end and fade Mahomes at quarterback. But, Travis Kelce is projected to be one of the highest owned tight ends on the slate. I just don't see how that materializes. I think ownership projections on these top guys are always a little bit off, in my opinion. But then again, these ownership projections are technically for tournaments, not for cash. So there's a little bit of a distinction there. I don't think he's going to be that owned personally. I do think everybody is going to pay down. Hayden Hurst at 3,300 looks okay. Same situation as T. Higgins. No Jamar Chase, no Joe Mixon. If you believe that the Bengals are going to throw the ball more, have a higher pass rate over expectation, Hayden Hurst 3,300 is the pay down tight end, in my opinion, this week.
Yep. Ricky in the chat, Hurst 2 touchdowns. Could definitely see it this week. He is such a strong play on this slate. Definitely going to be trying to get to Hurst. I mean, is he like a priority for you? Like if you needed the 300 to go down, would you make that swap like to say Trey McBride, for 200 less, or Logan Thomas for 300 less, or do you just, have to sort of get Hurst in there?
I mean, buddy, you don't have to get any cheap tight end in here. They're all the same.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
Yeah.
Obviously he's projecting the best right now. And I do think his target upside is higher than Trey McBride's and Logan Thomas or any other tight end in this range. So that's kind of why I prefer Hurst. I just think, if we play this slate out, let's say 100 times, Hurst is getting 2, 3, 4 more targets than Trey McBride, Logan Thomas, in probably like 75-80% of the time. So
yeah, no, for sure. I also think that if you play this slate out 100 times, all of these guys are likely finishing with 10 points in 80 of those simulations.
Not even. not even 10 to 6.
Yeah.
6 or 7.
That's the important thing to remember is like as good as the spot is, at the end of the day, these guys are tight end sub 4K, and their realistic expectation should be like, 4 for 40, 3 for 40, something like that. So
yeah, so I prefer Hurst, but Trey McBride looks okay at 3,100. Don't mind him. Zach put in the chat, I like Mark Andrews this week. Yeah, I think Mark Andrews is a better play than Travis Kelce. You get relatively the same ceiling, as from a player perspective, talent perspective. Mark Andrews was the overall tight end 1 last year, shown it earlier this season before injury, like upside extremely high, had a couple chalk weeks in there around the same price tag, 6,500, 1,200 less than Kelce. I mean, I think the target upside is obviously higher with Kelce, but Mark Andrews is the only guy in that Ravens offense right now.
Yeah.
So I think he's a better play than Travis Kelce if you want to go there in cash, but I'm just paying down. You need the salary somewhere. Tight end is the place to save it. But in terms of tournaments, I think like getting up to Mark Andrews is probably my favorite tournament strategy at tight end, especially if you're playing Lamar, you're stacking Mark Andrews with Lamar 100%. But I think you could definitely one-off Mark Andrews as well. And he has the upside to lap pretty much every single tight end on the slate outside of Travis Kelce.
Right. And if you're talking yourself into a game script where, the Chiefs really take their foot off the gas at some point, then I think that there are ways that you could tell yourself that Andrews has the best accessibility to a ceiling between the two in this week. So yeah, I love Andrews, and Fresh put in the chat. Do we have any love for the Jags receivers? Yeah, I think Christian Kirk is a great bring back this week. 6,500. He's kind of priced out of a range where I think a lot of people will play him. Ownership percentage at 2% right now. And mentions the Ravens matchup. They've given up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I think Christian Kirk's a phenomenal GPP pivot. Sticking with tight end, though, I think one of my favorite plays this week, just looking at the price range and ownership, is definitely going to be Gerald Everett. The Arizona Cardinals, in terms of like their linebacking core, is just absolutely egregious. They've given up the most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. It seems like year after year, it's just part of their scheme. They're always susceptible to getting beat by opposing tight ends. And Everett fully practiced on Thursday, fully practiced on Friday. He should be fully back. And I think without Mike Will, that kind of is a boost for Everett and what his potential red zone usage is. He's a big body. He's been had a propensity to get targeted in scoring position by Justin Herbert. Great game environment, matchups immaculate, and nobody's going to play him just because it's an awkward price tag. Like it's over 4K. People would rather just pay up to Andrews or Kelsey or just punt it off, which will totally keep his ownership in check, projecting for under 5% owned. He's going to be one of my favorite plays in tournaments this week.
Yeah, I like Gerald Everett for sure. Coming off of injury, not going to be owned too much. And I mean, Arizona is consistently the worst defense against tight ends. They give up big games to opposing tight ends. Legitimately, it seems like every week, every other week, and every season.
Yeah.
We've always talked about how Arizona is a tight end funnel. So Gerald Everett, 4,400. No Mike Williams there. I think the upside is extremely high. At the tight end position, you need touchdowns though. So if I'm playing Gerald Everett, it's only in a stack with Justin Herbert, and assuming Justin Herbert throws multiple touchdowns, because that's the only way Gerald Everett is getting there, in my opinion, is through touchdowns. So not playing him as a one-off, only stacking him with Justin Herbert and expecting a big Herb game there with Gerald Everett. I don't really have any other tight end thoughts, to be honest.
No.
I like Mark Andrews.
The guy that I wanted to plug.
Mark Andrews is my favorite tournament play this week. And he's projecting for, let's see, Mark Andrews is projected for 15% ownership. So he's going to be one of the 3 highest owned tight ends on the slate, unfortunately, but I think he's a very good play.
Definitely a good play this week. All right. Do you want to build a winning team for the people right here?
Oh, it's already on the screen.
You know what? Since you put Chiefs in there, we should talk about that, because the Chiefs are going to be the highest owned defense that we've seen on DraftKings this entire year. They're literally like almost tripling up every other defense in terms of ownership projection. How could they not, though? The spot is so good at home against the Rams. Stafford out, Kupp out, traded away Darrell Henderson. I mean, God, this spot is so good for the Chiefs defense. Obviously, we can get away from them in tournaments. Do you play them at all in tournaments?
Absolutely not.
No, no fear,
bro.
No fear,
bro. You're not playing a 40 or 50% owned defense in GPPs. Stop it.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It doesn't matter how good the spot is because it's a defense and it's so fluky. You're totally right. But I mean, they're a clear-cut lock in cash.
Yeah, I mean, you're locking in Chiefs D and cash, and Mr. Torian replace Higgins with Metcalf here with Jets D. Yeah, this is just the cash game lineup. Giving the people, we got a good amount of viewers. Shout out to everybody watching. If you're watching, you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel.
Almost at 600.
Almost at 600. Close. We'll probably be at 600 within the next couple days, especially with the videos. Drop Prize Picks videos every week. Ben dropped one for Thanksgiving, went 2-1, had a good Thanksgiving. I had a couple sweats. We already talked about it at the top. Just got hoed by the refs. Did you think that was a touchdown?
Of course.
Was that was a touchdown, right?
I think it absolutely was.
How and then somebody put up a side by side of the Travis Kelce touchdown against the Colts, where he did the same thing and the ball flew out of his hands. Well, Hunter Henry's touchdown, which is clear cut in his hands all the way through, bobbles a little bit, still stays on his body. How's that an incomplete pass, bro?
I mean, it's very clear that the refs had Vikings -2.5 in that spot.
Bro, like, obviously can't complain as a Patriots fan because Patriots have gotten so many calls over the years, but that game was just absurd. That game was ridiculous, bro. Like, how's that incomplete? That shit, I shit you not, I dreamt about that shit. That shit hurt me to my core, because that, like I tweeted, literally with that touchdown, because it was like late in the third and there's really no impactful plays after that. I stacked Mac Jones with Hunter Henry at 5% total ownership on that Thanksgiving slate. I would have came in first and second in 2 separate contests, but instead I came in 12th and like 40th in those respective contests. Yeah, this dude has the nerve to say skull. That's crazy. That was so. Oh my god, bro.
That's crazy.
It just seems like sometimes the variance plays that you need just don't go my way. Because we'll talk about it more in depth. Because I want to go on a whole rant, but like DeAndre Swift, bro, come on, dude, bro,
literally
down at the 1. Gets a fucking easy open out route to the left to the left pylon. Jared Goff misses him for a touchdown. He still finished with 10 points. Okay, that's whatever. I tweet Isaiah Hodgins, GPP winner, 3K. First touchdown of the game, 24-yard Isaiah Hodgins touchdown. Oh, illegal man downfield, bring it back. Like, come on, bro. All three. I needed 3 separate things to happen in each game, and all 3 things went the other way.
And not only that, but like just very, very close too. Like calls that, I mean, Swift should have had that easy. Swift should have easily had that. The Henry
Hodgins
thing,
ones,
I think, should have stand. Yeah,
the Henry one was a touchdown. Literally, the entire universe thought it was a touchdown.
Yeah,
I don't like the entire population of Twitter thought it was a touchdown. I don't know.
But that one goofy ass dude dressed like a zebra said it wasn't. So tough scene. You're out 4K. That's crazy.
It's disgusting. I didn't even care about the money. I wanted the win, bro.
Yeah,
it would have been my first GPP win.
Yeah.
Well, and it was because of like my team, which would have been just the cherry on top. Like Mac Jones comes through with his best game ever, and the fucking refs have to get in the way.
I truly feel for you. That's tough. That's truly tough.
I'm over it now, but
yeah, nothing to do but look forward. All right, Richard in the chat, full PPR, need a running back and a flex. P. Ryan, Boyd, or Latavius. I mean, God, I don't know. Probably Boyd, right?
I like Boyd more than Latavius personally.
Yeah, it's either P. Ryan or Boyd. If you need a running back and a flex, then it's P. Ryan and Boyd, I think.
Yeah, I think Boyd is pretty solid. Latavius is just going to project more, but I want ceiling and depending if you need a win or not. Like we're getting into the part of redraft specifically where you pretty much know what you need to happen, especially if you're like on the bubble. Or if you're ahead, you can play a little bit safer and go Latavius and P. Ryan. Just play, the chalk running backs and play the running backs who are going to get opportunity. But if you need a win and you need upside for like a potential playoff push, like I would go Boyd there and P. Ryan.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Definitely have to look into the context of where your team sits and, the matchup and how many points you think you realistically need to win a game.
Yeah, especially right now because we're getting into the waning weeks of redraft, and if you need a win, like you got to shoot for ceiling. Fuck the floor.
Yeah, that's facts. I'm on my last leg right now in redraft. Like tomorrow, we'll decide whether or not I have a shot at the playoffs in both of my main leagues. So big sweat tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go 100% to make the playoffs in every league that I'm in, but.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm in a couple of those leagues with you, and you're definitely a first round out in at least one of them. So,
I mean, I'm getting a buy in one of them, so
that's not that one.
Not possible.
Not
possible in that one. Shout out to Rashad White, who I get this week. That's lit. My top 3 running backs I'm playing this week are White, Latavius, and Jeff Wilson. I'm paying up at tight end, looking 6K for receiver. I like Terry.
Yeah, well, I like Terry too.
Sorry to inform you, Zach. That's what most of the player pool is doing as well.
Yeah,
minus Terry, but
yeah, I mean Latavius, I don't think is a bad cash play, but I would prioritize a little bit of ceiling at that third spot.
You could play him in cash for sure. I'm fading, a dust ball in the worst offense in the league that can't score 18 plus points. And if they did, they'd be like 9-1 or 10-1 or whatever.
Yep. Totally agree.
All right. Let's build a tournament team here. I mean, we're locking in Jeff Wilson, right?
Certainly.
Like, let's say we're what do you want to build this for? For like a little small entry or small field single entry or a large field tournament?
I mean, yeah, let's do like something middle of the road, like call it like the slant or something like that.
Okay.
That's pretty popular. Like,
there's no way you get away from Jeff Wilson.
No,
absolutely no shot. Now the question is, do you want to get away from, the P Ryan? Latavius is Timothy.
Ricky loves Latavius. Dude's been gassing him up all chat. I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. Like early in the week, I was on it, and then I just kind of have faded. But yeah, I mean, all right. So yeah, I do think that we get away from some of these other running backs personally. I would be fine eating secondary chalk at running back, like if you wanted to play Connor or Walker, I think, but I'm really not trying to eat into too much of these other guys in tournaments.
Yeah, totally agree.
Zach said, who's going to take Latavius's usage? It isn't a usage concern. It's just the fact, like Joey said, he's dusty and the Broncos have like the worst offense in the league. It's like, especially in the red zone, they literally cannot score. So Latavius isn't competing with anybody but himself, and the state of this Broncos offense, which I think we can safely say is absolutely terrible right now.
Yeah, obviously Latavius is going to be a very voluminous running back. But I do think Marlon Mack works in a little bit. I think Divine Ezigbo works in a little bit. Like, why is Latavius Murray going to be a workhorse when they didn't make Javonte Williams a workhorse? They didn't make Melvin Gordon a workhorse when Javonte Williams went down. So why would Latavius be a full 3-down workhorse? Doesn't make too much sense. They are going to work in another running back 100%.
Yep.
So I don't necessarily believe that he's going to be a 3-down running back. And like I said, he's just a dust ball. That's why I'm fading him. Zach has a lot of Marlon Mack. You don't need Latavius. You need Marlon Mack, Zach.
Yeah, you definitely do.
I've seen the exposure
Marlon Mack and best ball.
I've seen the exposure pages from Zach. He needs Marlon Mack to give him a nice little spike week one of these waning weeks for sure.
This would be the time. Richard in the chat says Moreau or Cole Kmet. I definitely think it's Moreau this week. Yeah. Seahawks have given up the second most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. They're right there with the Cardinals in terms of being the worst in the league.
Yeah, no, you're going Moreau in that spot.
All right. So with this team, we could maybe build two teams if you want, because I know you're big into the Burrow stuff, but I'd like to build a game stack of this Chargers Arizona game and see how that looks, to be honest.
All right, what side do you want to stack?
I like the Kyler side. I like the Kyler. I mean, obviously you're putting Hopkins in there. The question is whether or not you want to double it with, Hollywood or Trey McBride, or just sort of let it be. I personally believe that contextually, because there's so much value on this slate, we can expect it to be a very high scoring week, which I think makes single stacks very viable, especially, with a quarterback that can get there with some rushing upside as well, like Kyler. So I feel very comfortable, going with a single stack here. I don't know if you agree with that logic.
No, I agree. And Kyler is cheap enough to where like he can hit his ceiling and bring along one player with him. If he was like 8K, you'd need obviously a higher ceiling, and you would need him to bring along more people or more pass catchers.
Right.
So Trey McBride would be the guy if you want to stack with Kyler and fill out the tight end spot, and then bring it back with Josh Palmer or something. But I'm definitely cool with a single stack of Kyler and D-Hop for sure. And then we could still bring it back with Palmer, but the bring back also At tight end would be Everett, which is obviously your favorite.
That's where I would be going with the stack. This is definitely, this is a 4-team beginning to a team that I'll be playing tomorrow 100%. I really love this core. But take it in a direction you want to go to start filling this thing out here.
Yeah, I think running back. So we're not playing James Conner as part of the stack. I think this is a team we could play Kenneth Walker in.
Agreed.
So if we play Kenneth Walker there, if we get a defense, we're playing any defense but the Chiefs. So a good defense or a defense in a good spot. So let's see. I mean, we just pivot right up to Panthers.
Yeah, definitely. Panthers are very good this week. I was going to say, I mean, Jets are the only team other than the Chiefs that I think are going to have significant ownership, but I mean, even them, you can play. I like the Panthers too. You're getting them at like a third of the ownership of the Jets. Yeah, Ricky says Jets. Like Jets are definitely the second best play, but going to come with quite a bit of ownership too. And you just get a lot of leverage on the field by playing any defense other than those two, I think.
I mean, I'll play the Panthers defense, which I think is still a decent enough defense against one of the worst offenses in the league in the Denver Broncos. Definitely am comfortable with that. So for this flex spot, do we go Rachaad White or are we eating too much chalk?
We have to find some contrarian pieces in this team.
Well, I think like playing 3 chalk running backs is okay. If our stack and bring back isn't that chalky, Tua or Kyler projected for 7%, not going to be, a top 5 owned quarterback on the slate. Gerald Everett, not going to be owned. D-Hop, obviously going to be very owned. And we could still get different at wide receiver. Like if we play like 2 guys under 10%.
Yeah.
Maybe even like a longer shot receiver in here.
Yeah, no, sure. We could plug Rachaad White in. I think that's okay.
And then, I mean, the thing that would make the most sense to me would just be making it a double stack with Hollywood. But
sure.
But that doesn't seem. I think I'd rather like get up and then pay down to the third wide receiver. Like
what does Burks give us? Treylon Burks is a straight line pivot. I mean, with a lineup like this, you could play Tyler Boyd as a corollary piece to, the Burks thing, and then you've got a little mini there, and you've got leverage off of T. Higgins, Samaje Perine. Like, I think that this is a very good lineup, to be honest. 100 on the board. Like, this is a really good lineup, in my opinion.
And then, obviously, at your flex, what would be the pivots here? I mean, no. Is Darrell Henderson going to play?
No, I don't believe that he is.
All right. Sheesh. I mean, yeah. I mean, it'd have to be Rachaad White for the flex spot.
Well, for this team, you would flip White and Walker because Walker plays late, and then you would have, 7K at flex. If you had to make a late swap, if your team's down bad, you could swap to somebody else who was playing late. I see Debo maybe.
Well, that'd be just DK.
DK. Yeah. Straight line pivot to DK for sure.
I do like a lineup like this though. Like maybe, and then you could get up a little bit as well off of Tyler Boyd if you want to one of these players.
Definitely. I mean, you could also play Palmer in a lineup like this instead of Everett and then go down at, you could play a Trey McBride double, or you could play, any of the other tight ends that you like as a one-off, and get Palmer in there with a little bit of more flexibility and salary as well to get to maybe another receiver you like more than Burks or Boyd.
All right, let's do it. Let's try and make this lineup fading Rachaad White though. I think Rachaad White's a good tournament fade.
Sure.
Maybe that's a bad take, but
I don't think that's a bad take.
Or is Kenneth Walker the fade?
It could be.
Because like you do, like for Walker to to really kill you, like you do need multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, you need Walker to get 30 and White to get 15, basically. White, P. Ryan, and Latavius all to get like 15.
Yeah, and if we flip this to like a Justin Herbert stack, I'd consider James Conner as well, who's actually going to come in like way lower owned than Wilson, Rashad White, Kenneth Walker.
And unlike with Murray, I think you're probably doubling Justin, right? So
yeah.
be it with Palmer or even Keenan, you could eat into because this lineup could be relatively contrarian, I think.
Let's see. I mean, nobody's going to play like Kyler, James Conner, D-Hop.
And it could get there. It could definitely get there. We've seen it happen this year already where running back, quarterback gets there together.
Yeah. I think that this game could definitely set up, especially with Connor and D-Hop as literally the only two options outside of Hollywood Brown, but Hollywood Brown isn't going to be fully healthy. I mean, this could be a week where like stacking something like this, like Kyler with James Conner and D-Hop. I mean, that first of all makes you overly unique. Just with that stack in general, nobody's going to play James Conner in the Kyler Hop stack.
Yeah, no, I also think that you could play both of those guys in a Justin Herbert team as well. If this game is going absolutely nuke, there's a good chance that a lot of the scoring is going through both of those players.
And then James Conner is a solid pivot off like Kenneth Walker. Like I want to play Walker in this lineup because I'd be playing James Conner, especially if we're eating into this Rashad White chalk a little bit. And we're just getting a little bit different at running back, but still one of the best projected running backs in James Conner. And it's a correlated piece. And then wide receiver, we could go like Josh Palmer or something like that, 5,400. We could do the Tyler Boyd, Traylon Burks thing, then have a little bit more salary. You could get up to Jets defense in this lineup if you really wanted to. With this, Panthers D, if you want to get up to Jets, boom, right there.
Definitely. I mean, what would playing Metcalf give you?
Yeah, that'd be
or
vibes.
Metcalf or Lockett, if we're off of Walker. Metcalf, I mean, we're both on Metcalf this week.
I really do think the Panthers defense is solid. But we could obviously go off defense. Like
yeah, I mean that puts the Chiefs in, which is tough. I mean, obviously, like that's like a really good lineup, though, but tough to eat into. You're eating into so much chalk there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this lineup is unique enough, with the stack and the bring back, and then you have Metcalf and Traylon Burks, who are going to be low owned, and I mean every tournament winner this year has been chalk, so can't be afraid to get a little chalk on your hands.
Especially on a week like this where the running back chalk is so good, so strong. Like there's going to be a lot of cumulative ownership on the winning teams, I believe.
Yep, totally agree. It's just going to be that one, 5% owned player, or you're just going to need like 2 or 3 players under 10% owned this week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all, and that's what you just have to identify. So my favorite, DK Metcalf. Love James Conner as well, who's going to be like 15%. Maybe that gets a little bit lower with Jeff Wilson and Rashad White and all these other running back plays taking up a majority of the ownership. I could see James Conner coming in lower than his projection for sure. We could build one more lineup. You said a Bengals stack.
Yeah. Bengals is your squad, right? So
yeah.
Are you eating into both Higgins and Hurst though, or would you try and play Boyd?
Yeah, I'd go Boyd here.
See, this is tough to me because I feel like the natural bring back is Burks here, unless you really tried to go contrarian and play Derrick Henry. But I mean, you definitely can. This is contrarian.
Yeah, and then you just fill out the rest of your lineup with chalk. That's all you have to do. Oh, you can't do that.
Yeah, that ain't fitting, bro.
You go like Trey McBride or something. Something like that. Mid-range wide receiver. You finagle it a little bit. Yeah, so this is definitely a build that I would run tomorrow.
Yeah. I like that quite a bit.
But
I mean, you could also play White over Henry, play Burks, and then you got another expensive flex like Adams or Tyreek or something like that.
if you want to go cheaper, you could go Burks as the bring back, right? You can go Burks. And then you could pay up. Let's say we pay up to Mark Andrews here. Mark Andrews, running back, 5,800. I mean, you got your choice.
Yep. I mean, what do you think about like playing like a Burrow Ryan Higgins or something like that? Like mixing Ryan in.
Oop.
I mean, I guess you're eating into chalk though. Even more chalk, which probably doesn't help.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't do that. So I would do something like we put White in at running back. White, Jeff Wilson, 5,800, and then you get like Terry, and then you get like Terry.
Yeah, no, that's actually really good.
Or something like that. But obviously, you could still pay down at tight end and maybe even get up a little bit from Terry.
Definitely, you could pay down at defense and maybe make that Terry McLaurin into a Christian Kirk corollary with Andrews or something along those lines.
Yeah, I do like Christian Kirk this week.
You're probably really scrap. Yeah, 700. I don't even know if is there a $2,300 defense this week?
Nah.
No. Yeah, there's not. Unless you play the Rams against KC.
Or Texans.
Rams or Texans.
All it takes is one fluky ass touchdown.
Sure. Aaron Donald. I mean,
yeah, Aaron Donald.
Ramsey. I mean, Ramsey got literally, oh my God, blown by from Chris Olave last week. Like it was embarrassing. Yeah. Absolutely embarrassing. But yeah.
But yeah, that's how I'm building tournament teams this week. Obviously, the lineups or whatever, but that's kind of the construction that I think is right. Yep. And that I think is going to win tournaments. You're playing these chalk running backs. You're playing a lot of chalk, but you're mixing in some low-owned contrarian pieces into your lineups. You know, there's some good game stacks, Bengals, side of the ball. You have the Cardinals, Chargers, all coming in a little bit lower owned than the rest of the players that they're competing against. So that's the route I'm going personally.
Yep. And I would just say that I could definitely see some cheap stuff getting there this week. They're going to be lower owned than they should be, but
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think that is it, brother. I think
that's
that we
12
have.
12 a.m.
It is 12 a.m. You know, 13 hours until lock. Bop, fade White and Wilson in cash. Yep. Send the head to head. You know the vibes.
Fade White and Wilson in cash. He's just trying to get everybody else to fade him. Get the ownership down. I like the play.
Man of the people.
We want people to not play those two, because Rachaad White and Jeff Wilson, in my opinion, should be 100% owned.
Definitely agree on Wilson. All right. I think that concludes the week 12 edition of the late night live stream. We'll be back next week. We'll be back on YouTube all week long. Prize Picks content, DraftKings content. The grind never stops. 2 podcasts every single week. Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're still watching on replay, shout out to you. You're the real MVP. Drop a like, sub to the channel. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Eric, Josh, Bop, Mr. Torian, Ricky, all of the goats. Zach, damn, bro. We got all the goats in here today. Shout out to everybody. Until next time, we'll catch you guys same time, same place next week. Let's cash it in this week, man.